All right. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Sonia McGowan, and I'm so excited to be here with three of my favorite people. So, if you've been watching our Facebook Lives over the last couple of months, you're familiar with our powerhouse trio of moms that we have here. We have Brittany Wade, and we have Jamie Filley, and we also have Cassey Kuester. So, we thought what a great idea to get all three of these moms together to really sort of talk about what just what they've been through with their kids and what they have going on in an effort to really help other parents who are in a similar situation be able to navigate a kind of a difficult system. So I want to start by having each person introduce themselves. So Cassey, I'm going to let you go first. Would you just tell us about your family and your kid and just kind of give us a brief introduction about you?
Yeah, so I'm Cassey Kuester and been married for 12 years. We have 4 beautiful kids. My youngest is 3, and that's who I'm here to talk about today. His name is Clay. He was vaccine injured at 15 months after thriving and meeting all milestones. A few months after his 15-month vaccines, he was testing at a 6 to 9 month old. So that is my big fight on everything I'm doing here and in this journey.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Jamie, tell us about your fantastic family.
Yeah. I'm married to my husband, Michael. We've been married for about 10 years, and we have Ty, my stepson. He's a teenager. And then together we have Brenna. She's 8. And then Bo just turned 6. And Bo has a diagnosis of autism. And we would probably have some other diagnoses. That's his official diagnosis, but we're also dealing with PANS pandis, or also known as autoimmune encephalitis. So we haven't pursued further diagnosing. He's officially has autism spectrum disorder with some other things going on. In our previous lives, I kind of talked about things leading up to his kind of final vaccine injury, whereas Clay was kind of thriving up to a point. Bo's was more of a gradual and then a lights out situation.
All right, thank you. And now, Brittany, tell us about you and your family.
My name is Brittany Wade. I'm married to my husband, John. We have 3 kiddos, Luke, who's 8, Olivia, who is 6, and Jackson, who is 4. And all 3 of my kiddos have their own unique needs that have been served here. My oldest son has PANS pandas, autoimmune encephalitis, auditory processing weakness, lots of other diagnoses, like Jamie was saying, but we don't wish to have them diagnosed because they're mainly symptoms of the other illnesses that he has. My daughter has Lyme disease and Bartonella. My youngest son, thankfully, we haven't found anything huge other than an immune deficiency. And all 3 of them and our whole family has mold illness. So we're all processing through all those things.
Wow, everybody seems to have more on their plate than they need. And when you are dealing with complex medical needs like this, have you found help readily available? Cassey, tell us your thoughts on that.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Have I found
okay.
Mainstream help?
Yeah, so what kind of help is readily available for kids who have complex needs like this?
Okay. So if I went mainstream and went to my pediatrician, I think I've told that story before. There was zero help there. Wouldn't even talk about what the root causes could possibly be, which I knew. I came to Covenant, and I worked with a holistic doctor before that. So I was in the mindset, I've got to get away from mainstream and go somewhere that's going to find out what is actually wrong with him, because he was normal. Now he's not normal. Something has caused that. So Covenant, we've been with you guys for almost a year now. And so we've done some tests, and looked at the root causes of what's causing his behavioral issues, his autism. So if I were to say what help is out there, I would 100% say if you are in the Jeff City area or any surrounding area, definitely go to Covenant, because they're going to run the test and actually find out the root causes, what's going on the inside of your body. So I appreciate you guys here.
So Cassey, tell us about, when you talk about testing and root causes, what sort of tests did we do with Clay and what did we find?
So we did blood test and we did urinalysis. And so that gave us, I think, probably hundreds of markers, but anything from looking at his cells, he had mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress, heavy metals. His whole body was just depleted. He was a whole new person. And like you said before, you're a car without gas. You can't really do anything. No speech therapy is going to help. Occupational therapy, he's not going to get anything out of it because his body cannot process that. So we got pages upon pages of his issues, and then you guys gave us a protocol for how we can address those issues.
Awesome. Okay, Jamie, tell us about some of the testing we've done with Bo.
Yeah, what she said, there's not a lot of help in the mainstream. The autism diagnosis is given, and then that's your answer that you're given, where that's not an answer. That's a collection of symptoms that's giving you an autism diagnosis, but that's not an answer. And the blood work that's drawn is just so minimal. It's kind of a joke. It's maybe iron and maybe a CBC, just a couple little tests. But here at Covenant, actually trying to seek help somewhere, what's going on the inside, we've done blood work, like extensive blood work, checking pathogens, cholesterol, many different things. We've done urine testing, urine analysis, stool analysis. We've done a mito swab, which is a more detailed look into his mitochondrial dysfunction. We've done mycotoxin testing, discovered he had a mold issue going on as well. We just did a Marcon's testing, which, stay tuned, we're waiting on all of those results. We've done heavy metal testing and more to come, but we've done the urine and stool analysis, blood work every year, probably at least every 9 months. We're doing those major testing, and then in between we'll do things like mito swab or the Marcon's testing, just as we go along in the healing process.
All right, Brittany, kind of same question. What sorts of tests have we done with your kids to help figure all this out?
Like the other two I've mentioned, we've done the urine testing, which is kind of the classic kind of foundation that we start with for everyone here. So my kiddos have had that done. Lots of nutrient deficiencies, omega imbalances. We've done the comprehensive stool analysis, where my son's gut was a wreck. So that one shows the good and bad flora in the gut, if there's inflammation in the bowel. Is the child not turning their carbohydrates or fats into energy? We've done the mycotoxin profile. We've done the tick-borne illness panel. Thank goodness they have the finger prick option for our family, so you don't have to draw blood for all of these tests. We've done the Marcon swab, which my son has strep and staph in his sinuses. My other two kiddos were lucky and just have a couple of other smaller pathogens. We've had the intraoral exams here for tongue ties. It's not really a test per se that you order, but more of an exam. So yeah, we've done lots of findings.
Okay, so these are not very mainstream approaches. So Cassey, what do you think are some misconceptions around your approach of going sort of outside the normal? What does your pediatrician think? What do your friends and family think? Or just in general, what are some misconceptions about this?
Yeah, it's kind of funny when I tell them, and not everybody, I mean, my family's completely on board, but doing things like chiropractic care and craniosacral therapy. They're like, for one, they may not have heard of craniosacral therapy. I had to explain that a lot. But chiropractic care, they're like, that is crazy. Like, how can that even help somebody? I try to explain it to them, but the problem, I think, with mainstream, like we have all these specialists, right? So we have someone focused on this part of the body and this part of the body and this part of the body, but they don't know the connection. So if you're not looking at the whole body connection, like the gut controls so much from, it controls 70 to 80% of your immune system, your brain function, your mood, nutrient absorption. So it's just an understanding. They have, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they really don't want to accept that there's anything outside of the mainstream media. And really, until you have a reason to use those services, you probably won't research it or accept it. So it's really opened my eyes too on all of this. I've learned so much from especially Covenant and all of these services. I didn't know what craniosacral therapy was. But until you have a reason to use it, you're probably not going to want to open your eyes, honestly. So that's probably the misconceptions about this, what we're doing now versus mainstream, where they don't want to look at prevention. They don't want to look at root causes. They just want to slap a Band-Aid, give you something that can alleviate the symptoms, but cause so many other issues that they don't track. So.
And Jamie, what do you think are some common misconceptions? What have people said to you about the decisions you've made about Bo and his treatment?
I think that it's very ironic when you get the comments that it's anti-science, that I'm a science denier and anti-science, when this is literally science. There's no science when you go to a mainstream doctor to have autism treated. There's no science. There's just, okay, there's the diagnosis, and then it's like nothing happens. There's no cause and effect. There's no, let's look in the body and see what's going on. It's so funny because it's literally the opposite of how science works. And what we're doing is a scientific, actual medical approach. We know that there are things that cause your immune system to be completely wrecked. We know that there are things with the gut that affects this and affects that. And we're actually doing science. We're actually digging in and doing the tests and making those connections. And there's no science and there's no medical care going on at all with the mainstream medical model.
Yeah. And Brittany, you've got a unique perspective now that you're dealing with.
That's how I would sum it up.
I love it.
It's just very ironic. Yeah.
So, Brittany, you've got a unique perspective given the tick-borne situation. Kind of talk about that a little bit and what your experience has been so far with this new diagnosis.
Well, the experience so far has not really been an experience. It's kind of been a self-guided experience, if you will. My daughter has had leg pain for years. Like, she's 6. She's been having these leg pains, probably since she was 2. And at her previous pediatrician's office, I had brought it up, and I actually videoed her having these twitches, if you will, while she was falling asleep and then actually asleep. And so with my son, who previously had a sleep study, I had found out that he had periodic limb movement disorder while he was sleeping, and that it was attributed to low ferritin. And so I was able to use his medical explanation for those things to convince my daughter's new pediatrician that I thought she had a ferritin deficiency. And so I showed him the video, explained her symptoms, and connected the dots for my son's symptoms also, which got us a blood draw for ferritin. And it was low, was actually critically low. But we've been supplementing for 4 years for iron and ferritin, and still no resolution in her leg pain. And so like my son's case, I just kept getting these gut feelings, or things would just, cross my path. God winks is what we call them. That led me to believe that this was something more than just low ferritin. Granted, it took me 4 years to finally come to the conclusion. And so I recalled her having 2 different tick bites, actually the same spot, location on her head that we didn't find for days. And so one in 2022, one in 2024. And so I just thought, I'll just Google, tick-borne illness and see if this happens to be a symptom. And of course, with Lyme and other tick-borne illness, you have joint pain, muscle pain, in any of your extremities. And so I'm like, what the heck? Let's at least rule it out, if not confirm it. And so I had to obviously come here to do that, because you can't go to your normal pediatrician or medical practice anywhere and ask or tell them what you want to be ordered, despite being the parent and knowing your child the best. So sure enough, my instincts were correct. And she does have Lyme and Bartonella. And so again, it's just been an interesting journey to kind of figure out your kids by yourself, because there's no one that will listen unless you're here. So I appreciate that I can, have my kids see you, and I can have a say in what happens to my kids' care.
All right, Jamie, this one's for you. What would you say to someone who believes that autism and other complex things, maybe like PANS pandas, are purely genetic disorders?
That one always gets me, because people seem to use that term like, oh, it's genetic, as something they really haven't critically thought through of like what that means. Kind of like genetic is this term of a magic wand that they're waving that nothing affects anything, and that's just not how things work. So they're just usually not aware of things like epigenetics or mutagenesis. And when it comes to the vaccine debate of if vaccines are causing autism for many kids, they'll use that typically as a response of it's genetic. Well, even vaccine manufacturers have not said themselves that vaccines don't cause genetic damage. Section 13.1 of every vaccine insert says they've never been tested for mutagenesis. So that's how we are changing DNA. So I don't think that they're making the point they think they are, that it's disproving vaccines. It's actually that vaccines can damage our DNA, as can other environmental factors can cause an epigenetic problem. That's where environmental toxins meet a genetic issue and cause that. So it's not disproving anything. It's not this magic wand that you think it is, and it's not ruling out vaccines as a problem.
Thank you. So Cassey, what's your take on that when people tell you, oh, this is just genetic, he was born with it?
So I just like to say, she went on the science part of it, but just my experience of, he was 15 months old and I went to the doctor and said, he's doing all these things and he's saying 40 plus words. And then, he's meeting and thriving. And I take him home after the vaccines and he was slowly regressing and then became completely nonverbal. Wouldn't have eye contact or any social abilities anymore. Just check the boxes for all the autism. And he didn't have any of those things before. So I just used, if he was at the state he was now with all the tests we ran and how his body's depleted, he wouldn't have been able to talk or to thrive. So something changed. He was the thriving boy that just completely fell off the edge. Yeah. That's not genetic.
Also, Bo had genetic testing. That is the gold star standard of when you get an autism diagnosis, you go through genetic testing. like one of the very few things that they actually do. Bo does not have a genetic disorder. This was caused by an environmental factor. He has no genetic disorder, as do like the vast majority of people with an autism diagnosis. Their genetic testing is absolutely fine. So something to keep in mind.
So genetic epidemics don't happen this fast, right? So when I started working with people with autism when I was in college, the incident rate was 2.5 in 10,000. So that would have been, I really started right after college, about 1992, working with people with autism. 2.5 in 10,000. And now we know it's 1 in 31. No genetic epidemic happens that fast, period.
No.
All right. So, Brittany, this one's for you. So remember in Jamie's original Facebook Live that we did, she talked about the total toxic load theory and how stressors can fill your toxic bucket and kind of make you overflow. So what have you seen in your family as being some stressors or substances that sort of overflowed your kids' buckets?
Initially, for my oldest son, I thought that artificial food dyes was like our first trigger, if you will, or it seemed like the easiest thing to target first. It was an easy first step that I could Google and attribute to behaviors, and so it was I say simple. I don't mean it to be actually simple, but it was simple compared to the harder things that we've been doing. So we cut artificial food dyes, and did it make his symptoms go away completely? No, but it did lessen sort of the outburst or the intensity of his anger or explosions. And so it really wasn't until we came here that I knew how full his bucket really was. We had previous food allergy testing, and it only had shown corn as one of his food allergies, but he had 20 plus environmental allergies. And so the one food allergen, which they told me was not necessarily needed to be removed from his diet because it was so low, but because his bucket was already full from ragweed, all the bushes and shrubs and grasses that we have in Missouri, the corn was the last straw, if you will, for his allergies per se. So he would constantly have this cough, congestion, mucus, asthma actually is what he was diagnosed with. And once we removed the corn from his bucket, he no longer had asthma. So on top of that, he also had strep and mold and EBV and mycoplasma, COVID, you name it. I mean, all of these things. And of course he was exploding because his bucket was literally overflowing. And so with treatment, we've unpacked his bucket some, drilled some holes in it to kind of let it slowly, trickle out. And it's true that there is something initially maybe minor that happens, but once the bucket keeps filling and filling and filling, it eventually has to overflow somehow. So for some kids, it's behaviors. For some kids, it's, you name it. Every kid is different. So every kid presents with their own overflow symptoms.
So that's one of the reasons that we here say this phrase a lot, that there are no bad kids. There are no bad kids. They may struggle with behavior, they may struggle with sleep, but there's always a reason behind it. It's a full bucket. It's some sort of wounding event. It's allergies. It's always something. And so that's why we're so passionate about looking at root causes. So yeah, I love that. All right. Now, Cassey, you are a force on Facebook. I love all the things that you share on Facebook. I think it's amazing. So you're very informed. So what resource recommendations do you have for other parents about complex kids, about toxins, about pathogens, any of the health related things that we've been talking about? What's your best advice for parents getting started?
Yeah, I will always say, number one, if you can find other parents that are going through the same thing, that is going to be your best resource. And then you can collaborate together. The ones that are fighting, the ones that are getting results. So find those parents. And number two, I will definitely recommend Covenant for any issues that your kid may be having. And with that, I mean, you guys have so many resources. You have a library of books and resources that people can check out and use. I will throw some doctors' names out there because I just love reading their stuff. Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, anything by her. So she has some books out there. Dr. Paul Thomas, Dr. Peter McCullough, and J.B. Hanley. So several of those are doctors that were mainstream and then found the system was broken, and now they are speaking out. And so they are good resources as well.
Awesome. And Jamie, for you, what are some of your favorite resources?
Ditto on the parents and Covenant, obviously. I highly recommend TACA. That's the Autism Community in Action. You can go to takanow.org, and they also have a Facebook page. Just wonderful biomedical advice of treating autism and co-occurring conditions medically. Redissolving Illusions by Suzanne Humphreys, and forgive me, his name is Roman B. I can't pronounce his last name. Her co-author deserves so much credit. It took them years to put together that book. Vax Facts is another great book by Dr. Paul Thomas. So definitely recommend all of those resources. And there's just so many parents that have been on this journey for many years. Like she was saying, that follow them. What did they do? Listen to that. Listen to their stories. And they all had MAPS practitioners. And when I first started this journey, I was like, what's a MAPS practitioner? Well, Dr. Sonia is one. It just stands for Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs. And it's just basically any type of practitioner that has taken the time to go to different trainings and conferences where they want to address autism medically. So that could be anywhere from an MD this is now their passion, to a chiropractor. But finding a great MAPS practitioner is key that can test your child instead of just guessing and going at this alone. Because I can't imagine, I did that for a while and we had great results. We were doing a biomedical approach, but in order to keep going with that progress, you really have to get a look at what's going on inside and testing, not guessing. So.
And to piggyback on what Jamie said, finding a practitioner who not only knows what tests to order, but it's really important you find a doc who knows the test to order, but has the knowledge and the experience to analyze those tests and make an intervention plan that makes sense. Right thing in the right order. There are lots of families who come to us with tests in hand. They've been to other practitioners who ordered hundreds of dollars in testing, really good testing. It was the right thing to order. But the problem is that the doc didn't have enough experience to be able to take that data and turn it into something meaningful. So it's really important that families find a practitioner who knows what to do with those test results. All right, Brittany, let's talk about.
Exactly, because as a parent too, it's overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely. And you can't do it on your own. It's the information is high level. And parents are so incredibly smart and informed, but it's really hard to doctor your own kid because you're just too close to it. You need someone who's a little bit more objective, who can sort of step outside and be objective about what the findings tell us, what order we need to go in, what's the most important thing right now. All right. So Brittany, tell me, how have you kept going when the system and other people have said to stop, that this is silly, that Luke just has, behavior problems? Like, what kept you going and kept that fire in your belly to figure all this out?
I think mothers really do have an intuition, or gut feelings are real, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, he's been different, if you will, for his entire life. Lots of medical things wrong with him. And so I always knew that usually, yes, it could have been from X, Y, or Z that he was born with. But things just don't happen for no apparent reason. And that I want to find out what it is, no matter what I have to do. And it takes a lot of time and finances and planning and support. And I mean, the list is endless of things that you need for this journey. But I think, like the other gals have mentioned, finding people who have the same experiences to tell you that you're really not crazy, that something really, like this really is a thing, has been foundational for continuing to fight. And also, faith is a huge factor for us also. I don't know how you would be in this position, our positions, and not have something to cling to, because a lot of times the situations are hopeless for a while. But then, the truth is revealed and you're like, finally, yes, I knew this all along, but 30 people told me I was stupid and wasting my money. But deep down, I knew that this was the route that I was supposed to go. And I'll do it no matter what, whether you support me or not. So it's fun, I guess you could call it, to look back and say, remember when you told me X, Y, and Z? Here's the proof that I was telling you. So I told you so. I love those conversations.
Jamie, same question for you. What has kept you going and kept your fire on fire?
My faith, Jesus Christ. If I didn't have him, I just would probably be on the floor in a ball, not moving, because this is just it's been a devastating journey. And I've shared so much about his progress because it's been so miraculous. But the reason that is so wonderful is because of where we started from. So a lot of people are like, oh, great, he's talking, he's potty trained. Like, that's great, but because they take it for granted. But whenever you know where you're starting from, that's a whole other story. And so nobody's going to walk with you like the Lord will. So my faith, number one. Also, you could just say for the love of your child. And you'll have people that will tell you hate your child and you don't accept them if you seek medical treatment. And that's such garbage, because if you care about somebody, then you are out to do them good, to help them in any way you can. And I'm not going to clap as Bo screams with obsessive thoughts or rages, or it debilitates his life. That's not accepting my child. That's, I love you so much and you are so precious and valuable. I'm going to get you the care you need to the best of my ability. So faith and the love of my child. And also just, we've seen the progress. Like, I think a lot of people think, well, you're just doing this to feel better. Like, so you feel like you're doing something. And whereas I wouldn't say, like, you should give up if you don't see results in 6 months, because some of these kids, like Bo, are super complex and it takes a lot of time. With all due respect, my husband and I are not loaded, and we don't have the money to do this for fun or the time. Like, we've seen it with our own eyes, how addressing his body, going through a medical model has completely changed his life. The proof is there. So also just science and logic has kept me going, of I can see these results and this is as clear as day. So
And Cassey, same question. What keeps you going?
So they've hit on a lot of it. So for me, I'm a fighter. So if the system is telling me stop, or there's nothing you can do, I know there's something you could do. Like, I'm going to believe the complete opposite of what you're telling me, because you don't want to, address the root causes or the healing. I found that out. There's just a lot of things with the system I don't agree with, and you telling me to stop is going to make me push harder. And then also knowing who my kid was and who he is now, I'm not going to accept that. And I'm not going to accept that he's crying for an hour and we don't know what the issue is. Like, that's not okay for me. So I'm going to do anything I possibly can to give this kid some comfort and hopefully resurface a lot of his old life back. And we've seen that. So, like they've mentioned, once you see that progress, then you're not going to stop. I mean, it could be, small jumps or big jumps. No matter what kind of jump it is, if I see anything, I'm going to keep pushing.
So this is a sensitive topic, and I'll let you guys decide between you who wants to take it first. There's a lot of stuff out right now about autism is a gift, and we should just accept our kids the way they are. And if you really loved them, you would just accept them. And autism is just quirky neurodivergence. I know how I feel about those statements, but what do you guys think?
Do you want to start with
Sure.
our destruction?
Yeah, so this is obviously a fight, and it's really disturbing. Maybe you haven't gone through the same things that we have, as far as your child was thriving and then they became a completely different person. So they may say, my kid was born this way. Okay, that's fine. But my question will also be, did you have vaccines while you were pregnant? Did the baby come out and have vaccines? Because toxic load, I mean, that baby may not have been able to handle it in the womb or coming right out of the womb. So how do you know that it was just, this is who they are? So there's different types, but I can tell you that there are millions of kids that have gotten their vaccines and regressed. And they're all yelling it to the rooftops and no one's listening. But if there are millions, there's a problem there. So with the HHS right now, what they're doing is everything that I was hoping would happen. So I'm going to cheer them on, and I'm not going to let other parents that think I hate my kid for not accepting autism. I'm not going to let that get in the way, because this is not who he is. He was not before.
I agree with Cassey. I've talked about this saying you hate them or don't accept them. It's the opposite. If your kid is precious, then you don't enjoy seeing them suffering. And there's been a lot of talk about, well, there is a difference. There's a difference whenever a child, when their parents wonder who is going to take care of them when I die, and someone that is able to get married and have a job. There's a difference. However, I have a real heart for people that struggle, whatever end of the spectrum they're on, because Bo, through medical care, is naughty trained and he is partially verbal. But you can be behavioral issues and not be able to do, it debilitate your life. Or you could have a child that's nonverbal but have of less severe, but in that somebody might have debilitating sensory needs and be nonverbal. Somebody else has no sensory needs, but yet they have like OCD that's crippling. Like there's so many things within autism that cause suffering. And I don't care if you're diagnosed with level 1, 2, 3, whatever. If you are in trouble and you need help, we should be helping those people and not fighting amongst ourselves where your kid can do this and my kid can't. Anybody that wants treatment should be able to get treatment and not be called a eugenicist. Like that's crazy. To me, if somebody is precious, then you try to help them and treat them as valuable. We don't say this about any other condition. If somebody has depression or cancer, we don't sit around and clap and say, yay, depression, cancer. Why is autism treated this way? It doesn't make any sense.
Brittany, what do you think?
I don't have much dog does not have autism. So I will speak on the other things sort of addressed are being addressed by the department in the way of our food sources, the chemicals that are added to them, the preservatives, the garbage, to be quite frank, affects behaviors of our children. And especially, I am very looking forward to not having to read every single food label to see if it contains artificial food dyes. I will still have to read them for dairy and corn, but to live in a world that has naturally dyed foods is going to be amazing. I mean, I don't quite understand why other countries do it. And it's made by the same company, yet our country thinks that it's still okay to poison us. And I know the difference. The government pays for health insurance, health coverage for their citizens, so they don't want them to be sick. So they provide them better food. In our country, we pay for our own medical insurance and medical care. And the sicker we are, the more they profit. So why wouldn't they want to put all of this crap in our food that's geared towards children mostly, bright and fun and, catches your eye. Fruit Loops, of course, they look delicious on the box. They taste like trash now that I don't consume artificial food dyes often. I can taste it in the foods that have them when I consume them.
All right, gals, let's wind it up here. So, Cassey, if you were to meet a new mom on Facebook or on the street, and she says, man, I think, my kid's regressed. We may be looking at an autism diagnosis. What's your best advice?
First, I'm going to give her a hug because I know when you first start this journey, it is extremely tough. I would immediately bring her into our parent circle, and that includes a lot of us here at Covenant, while also saying, please go to Covenant, meet with Dr. Sonia, have a consultation. She will work with you to run tests on any of the issues that are identified and help you look to see what the root causes are, and any protocols that you guys get, because you guys have a ton of options to help.
Awesome. And Jamie, what would you say to a new mom?
Well, I do have this happen a lot. And what I do is kind of like what Cassey said. I start with, I'll be praying depending on where they're at. Can I pray with you? Giving them comfort, letting them know, you can talk to me. You don't have to put on this, awkward, happy smile. Like you can genuinely, authentically, let me know how upset you are. I would, of course, refer them to Covenant. I feel like we've talked about this, like a walking billboard sometimes, but I truly mean it. So I would talk to them about that. And chances are if they know me or know me from online, then they already know this about me and a little bit about Bo's journey. So I'll talk to them about that, about Taka. I will also offer to meet with them in person. It really depends on the person. A lot of times they're not local, but even if they are, usually when you have a complex child, you're a little isolated and you may not feel like getting out. So I'll tell them we can of course talk online or through text or phone, but I will meet you. I will come to be with you in person. And I'll usually go through a series of questions, and it just depends on how open they are, how much they're wanting from me. If they're suspecting autism, but they're not sure, I will very gently point them to the MChat. You can find that easily online. It gives you a really good idea if you're looking at autism or not. And it's actually one of the forms that they even use in your diagnosis appointment. It's not just a random made up form. I will ask them a series of questions, kind of prompting if they're open to it about, is your child vaccinated? Whether we rule that out or not, I will also talk to them about mold and prompt them to make sure that you don't have a mycotoxin situation. And I won't get into every single environmental factor, but I'll hit some of the big ones like vaccines, like mold, and a few other things like that. I'll just hit those heavy hitters and point them to TACA, have them go to that website, and then just go from there on how much they're open to talking. And like I said, of course, always refer them here. If they are local and they're wondering, how do I get diagnosed? I will point them, this is where you can go for a diagnosis appointment, maybe talk to them about first steps if their child is little, that kind of thing.
Great. And Brittany, what resources would you offer?
I would first tell them that they're not crazy, because that's what everyone jumps to, is that you're just a crazy psycho mom who's chasing down something that's not real. Just accept the diagnosis, give them the medication and move on with your life. And that doesn't have to be the only way, but other people don't know that there's another way. And so I would offer, what alternative medicine looks like and how it actually meets your body's needs versus masking the symptoms. I personally really enjoy the Pandas Network or the Aspire Facebook group for PANS, Pandas, autoimmune encephalitis kiddos. I've met tons of parents there in the Midwest group and then kind of the global Pandas Facebook page. It's been a good resource to connect with other parents who are local, who are new to their journey. I just connected with a mom who sees the same neurologist as us, and we've gotten to gnash out some of our frustrations that other people might not have or understand, especially being from a medical background to begin with. And her being a nurse, we can have the deeper level of conversation that I personally enjoy. And it's hard to find someone, that can understand what you're actually going through. And so when you find those people, you make a team and then you're like, oh, well, I just met so-and-so, like Cassey said, I'm going to bring you into our circle. And so that we can be a resource for each other, whether it's a play date, whether it's, we're still up at midnight researching about the next step for our kids, whatever it may be. It's helpful to have that group of people in the same situation to relate to. I would, of course, tell them that the famous quote of yours that sticks with me today and still makes me teary is that there is no bad kids, and that if your kid is having a behavior, it's not the kid. Like, there's a reason why, and it's necessary to find out why, or it's going to continue or escalate. And so we've benefited greatly from all the services here, HSpot, the Ion Cleanse foot baths. I once was not a believer in chiropractic care, and here I am. My whole family comes. So it's just someone who has A, been where you are, and B, is now a little further into their journey. It can kind of pull you along, pull you up when you are at rock bottom.
And we are starting the Village.
Yes.
We just had our first play date. So at Covenant, we're calling it the Village at Covenant Wellness. And so that's something we're trying to get off the ground. And if you're interested in that, just let us know. You can private message or comment, and Your child doesn't have to have a complex need. Maybe you're just choosing alternative medical care through here, and you want to help support other families that are going through this, or your kid could have a complex need and you're a patient here. But it's just basically a parent support group, and we'll have various meetups and thinking about doing some online things as well for people that can't really get out as easily. So let us know if you're interested in that.
All right, final thoughts, Jamie. Anything else you have to say about Bo or testing or any of the things that we've talked about?
We have people like their brains want to explode when when I go through everything we've done, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, we're just getting started.
Right.
Even though, we're only 3 years into Covenant and kind of testing journey, almost 5 years overall with everything. I'm like, it's not that there's nothing you can do when your kid has a complex need. It's actually that there's so many things. And I don't mean to sound dismissive, but when somebody, because I understand the people that maybe they did biomed for 4 years and they're like, we did everything, so we gave up. That's literally not possible. There's such a long list that we've been at this for 3 to 5 years, however, depending on how you're looking at it. And we've just made a dent. There are so many things that your child could be looking at. Autoimmune encephalitis wasn't on my radar when I first learned he had autism. And then now I realize he's got pans pandus. And actually, I think it's all connected with the vaccine injury. His immune system is just completely destroyed. Actually, I think you're getting ready you do webinars often on pans pandus. So that's coming up Friday, I think. So anybody that's like, what are they talking about with pans pandus or autoimmune encephalitis, tune into that. But that's really like one of our big focuses. There's just so many things you can do that I feel like we're just getting started. And also there's so many things you can be doing at home that will help give you better results with what you're doing through Covenant or another practitioner. Diet. Your practitioner can't make you change your child's diet. And I know it's not fun, but it's necessary. And a lot of people think I'm crazy because Bo does gluten-free, casein-free, and then some. But gluten-free, casein-free is just a very foundational piece of the healing journey. I mean, there's moms doing GAPS. They're doing specific carbohydrate diet, read. Maybe they're sensitive to oxalates or phenols. Like, that's an ever-evolving thing. I feel like I'm just doing basics compared to some of these veteran families. So there's things you can be doing at home, removing toxins from your home. What are you cooking with? Are you cooking with aluminum? Artificial fragrances. I'm so sensitive to that now that we cut out that. Like I can't even walk down the aisle at Walmart with all of the laundry cleaners. It's just overwhelming. So it may seem like loose little drops in the bucket, but anything you can do. I'm not perfect. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly feeling like, gosh, I should be doing more. But every step is just a step forward. And of course, do those heavy hitters. Something I haven't touched on at all. We were kind of talking about different environmental toxins. A big problem, I think, is overprescription of antibiotics. And sometimes it doesn't play into the vaccine end of things, but sometimes it does. A lot of times our kids have reoccurring ear infections that are that's usually a vaccine injury. Not all the time, but usually. My kids, like so many others, as soon as they stopped receiving their vaccines, they stopped the reoccurring ear infections.
Ditto.
And it's a cycle. And Bo was put on antibiotic after antibiotic. So not only was he being injured through the vaccines, his microbiome was completely just destroyed. So come to find out, after I stopped vaccinating, he stopped. Brenna too, my other child, stopped getting ear infections. But it turns out most of those can be treated with garlic mullein oil and chiropractic care. You don't need antibiotics for everything. I'm not saying that they're not necessary, but there's so many different things that we need to be doing outside of just the test and the action plan with our MAPS practitioner. Make sure you're really looking at every piece of that.
All right, Brittany, final thoughts from you.
My final thought is that you should trust your mom gut, trust your instincts, trust the God winks, because they're usually right.
And Cassey, let's wrap it up. What are your final thoughts?
So I just, as parents that may have kids with complex needs or a new kid, I want you guys to just have hope. There is hope out there. We have all seen progress in the route that we are going. So don't feel defeated. It will be an emotional roller coaster. You'll have good days and bad days. But I can tell you from firsthand experience, he's gaining his speech back. He's making eye contact. He's socializing. And it's only been a little over a year or so. So he's made great strides. So I have hope. I know we all have hope. And that's what I want to tell the parents with any complex kids.
Well, I always get verklempt when we do these things because it's just so impactful, and it's the work that we do here is just so important, and families are looking for resources and they're desperate. And I'm just so happy that you guys are willing to share your stories so that other families can not feel as alone as you guys did and as I did when my son was little. We have to get the word out that, to medicate or to live with it are not your only choices, that there are no bad kids, right? There are no purposeless behaviors. And if we dig in and really figure out what's going on, these are kids who can recover. So thank you guys for joining us. I just appreciate so much that you're willing to tell your stories and help other families. So again, just mad respect for you guys. You're amazing parents, and you're great advocates and evangelists for Covenant. So I really appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a great day. And we'll see you again next month for our next Facebook Live, Recovering Complex Kids. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.